So as many of you know who have been um, listening to me in one form or another and participating in some of these meetings, I'm really emphasizing how our habit, our very strong kind of tendency is to orient to our ideas about what's going on, our concepts about what's going on. As what's true, essentially, like imagining that what we think is happening is what is in fact happening. And to discover that that's not the whole story, that in fact our concepts of things, our interpretations of things are partial at best and often terribly misleading and just flat out wrong, in the sense of our concepts are incapable of holding what's here, of containing the vastness that's actually here. The sort of simple, if you will, way to discover that is to simply feel experience. I say this all the time, to feel what's happening, what seems to be happening. And I've had a number of conversations with people about who seem to be sort of trying to wrap their heads around what I mean when I say feel your experience. And it's difficult to, you sort of discover what that is by doing it, like many things. It's like trying to teach somebody how to ride a bike. You can't really tell them how to balance. And so when I say feel your experience, what do I mean? It is difficult to say, but I'll take a crack at it here. And that is that something's clearly showing up, and we have lots of names for what's showing up: thoughts, emotions, sensations, memories, and so on. And how do we know that these things are showing up, that we have descriptions and interpretations about? How do we know that? How do we know that something is present right now, which it clearly is, right? We know that something is here, that something's showing up, that something is happening because it's being felt. That's how we know. In other words, the presence of it is being felt as experience. So when I say feel experience, that's what I mean. Feel that presence of what's here. So for example, I would say, conventionally speaking, that I'm sitting in my living room, which is an interpretation of what's happening. But this thing that I just described, the living room, is showing up. It's appearing. It's happening as a phenomena, is being experienced. And the presence of the room, the concept I have of the room, is showing up as experience. I'm feeling this room, so-called room, as experience. And what's so interesting about feeling it as experience, rather than merely our idea about what it is, in other words, an idea that I have that this is a room, and I feel it as experience, it becomes quite interesting, because, as I talk about all the time, when we feel the experience of what's here, the direct experience of what's here, the actuality of what's here, we discover all these ways that experience itself transcends what we think it is, in profound ways, in surprising ways, in ultimately liberating ways. So with that little preface in mind, I just invite you to feel your experience right now. And as you do that, I'm just going to explore together with you, the way in which our ordinary perceptions that we live in a world, or interpretation, I should say, that we live in a world of separate pieces and parts that are divided one from the other, that somehow are bounded. that have clear lines, apparently, of demarcating one thing from the next, right? Like all the objects in my room that I talk about as objects of my room, my living room. This is just conventional, you could say, consensus reality, that this is the case, that we live in a divided world. One phenomena divided from the next, divided from the next. And of course, we feel or perceive ourselves and imagine ourselves as selves divided from what is not self, right? Fundamentally. But as you feel your experience right now, I just want you to notice how there's actually no, in experience, there's no closed doors. There's just complete wide openness in experience. So, for example, we have this sense of perceiving phenomena. The wall, I'm perceiving a wall over there, my computer screen, the table here, chair over there, and also perceiving sounds, thoughts, and so on. And then we hold this idea that there's a perceiver of all of this that's being perceived, and that there's somehow separation between the two, right? That there's a boundary between the two. But as you just feel your experience right now, notice something quite staggering, really, given our sort of default notion, and that is you do not find a perceiver and a perceived. You don't find some sort of door separating a presumed perceiver and what's being perceived, do you? You just find complete openness. If there's a perceiver and a perceived, they're entirely blended, just total openness. There's no separation in experience. And you can explore all of this with your eyes open or closed. It doesn't matter, really. And you can go back and forth. That might be interesting. You have this sense of being an individual, this idea of being an individual existing in a world. And you feel experience. You feel what you call you, the individual of you. There's nothing but pure openness. In other words, you don't find a door between you and what's not you, presumably, do you? If there's a door, the door is flung wide open. There's no door. There's just openness. You just feel that wide openness. Nothing standing between self and not self. No door. Just experience. That we could say sort of takes on the appearance of a self and a world, of a self and other, like all of us. It certainly appears like that, but when we feel the experience, when I feel the experience of presumably all of you, who I'm experiencing right now, I would think of as experiencing. Again, there's no door between us, is there? In that sense, there's not separate. Actually, there's not people in a sense, experientially. There's experience. Pure, wide open experience. And take any phenomena that we think of conventionally as bounded in some way, right? That there's something, it's closed, it's a closed loop, so to speak, like the body. And then what's not the body, my body, and then the world outside of my body. And if I feel the body as experience, what I think of as the body as experience, if you invite you to do that, feel the body, so-called body, as experience. And again, do you notice a closed door? Do you notice anything except complete openness? Body has no edge to it, does it? What we call the body. So in one sense, what is the body? If there's no edge to the body, what is the body? It's open experience, like everything else. Wide open. Just enjoy that complete, wide open, limitless expanse of what we call the body, what we call the world, outside, presumably, of the body. The body and the world are not separate. Again, there's no actual line separating the two. It's just openness as experience. Maybe there's a separate body living in a separate world, but experientially, there's no separation. When you feel experience, you feel this openness, don't you? You don't run into something. Just keep feeling your experience, take it out spatially as far as you want it to go, if you will. And you never hit something, do you? You just keep finding more experience and more experience and more experience, don't you? You see what I mean? You don't crash into a wall. There's no walls. Isn't that amazing? You just find nothing but openness. It's interesting too to consider all the different senses. We talk about the senses as separate one from the other. And in one sense, they're clearly differentiated. Sound, the sound of my voice, sound of the car that just went by outside my window, a bird. I think of them as all separate sounds. Wow, they're distinct. There's that bird again. And my voice. Wow. You can't really say where they are. They appear as distinct from one another, as distinct sounds. As I feel the sound of my voice and I feel the sound of the bird, there's no wall there. There's no separation there. Differentiated and yet complete openness. One sound and the next. Nothing. No doors between them. If you take the sense of sound, again, my voice, because you're hearing that right now, of course, because I'm speaking, and then the dimension of, let's say, thought, and you could have some ideas about, just conjure up an idea about my voice, like it sounds like it's a deep voice or kind of moderately deep voice, or it's a higher register voice, sounds like a male voice, let's say, any thought you might conjure up, there's that thought, and then there's the sound, and they're distinct from one another, aren't they? The thought's about the sound. But again, you don't find you just find openness. When you experience the thought and you experience the sound, they're absolutely blended, they're differentiated, but there's no separation there. There's nothing but openness again between these supposedly separate sense dimensions. Just openness. Everywhere we look in experience, again, we find nothing but a seamless whole. We can think about it as, again, differentiated. Experience seems very differentiated, right? This is kind of what I'm pointing to. All these distinct aspects, thoughts, emotions, sensations, all kind of these different flavors or qualities or textures of life, dimensions of experience. But it's absolutely, we could say, a seamless whole or a continuum of experiencing. Those are synonymous, right? Again, because there's no closed doors, there's just wide openness. It's like nothing that's being experienced is contained. It's uncontained. It's, if your experience was a bird, it's not in a cage. It's not locked into anything. It's not shut into anything. It's not closed in by any boundary or door. It's the doors of experience are flung wide open, and everything is out. Everything is uncontained, free, not trapped, not bound. Or if your experience was like water, and it very much has this fluid sort of dynamic, ever-changing nature, just like water, it's not dammed up. There's nothing blocking the water of experience. It's never blocked. It's never held back by anything, because there's no boundary anywhere. There's no obstacle anywhere. It's just openness. Openness in front, behind, within, above, below. Any direction, suppose a direction you might travel in experience, right? You find the same thing, which is no walls, no doors, just openness. Not because I'm practicing being more open, opening my mind, opening my heart, opening my body. No, I'm not practicing that. I'm just seeing that it is open, no matter what's happening. Even if you're all tensed and contracted, in a way you might describe as tense and contracted and agitated and not relaxed. As experience, if I tense right now, I'm tensing my body. And as experience, I feel it as the tension, what I'm describing as tension as experience. The experience of tension is wide open. It has no boundary either. You see, it's all openness, fundamentally, no matter how it's being described. Nothing caged, nothing trapped, nothing stuck, nothing bound. Just pure freedom. This openness of life, of experience. Nothing blocking, nothing in the way of anything else. Nothing defended against anything else. Nothing protecting itself from something else or defending itself. Just total, everything touching everything, everything open to everything. This is the nature of experiencing itself, isn't it? No inside or outside as separate from one another. We can talk about inside and outside. But again, we don't find a door between the two, do we? No door between inside and outside. Feel that. We can imagine a door, but feel your experience. Do you find a door?